this is Rachel from Ray K Books, and today I'm going to be interviewing Katee Robert. Hello, Katee.
Hi.
So today we're going to be talking about your newest book called Queen of Swords. Can you please tell us a little bit about it?
It is a sci-fi romance. It's full of shenanigans and on the same heat level as my Brazen books. So if you like the Brazens, you'll probably be into these ones as well.
So what inspired you to write your first book?
That's a good question. I've been wanting to I had been wanting to, like I had a bunch of false starts, and I was in Germany with two kids under 2. My ex-husband was Air Force, and it was kind of that or go absolutely insane because I had no one to talk to. So I started writing and kind of never stopped. It's cheaper than therapy, that's for sure.
So I know we talked about this before, but I do want to bring this up. You said that you read a book, or you wrote a book that in 2008 that you could, it's like you can't, what's it called, publish it.
Oh no, ever, never, ever.
What is it about? Why is it so unpublishable? Which is maybe.
It wasn't. I mean, looking back now, it's very like I was exploring how to write a book. I guess it's full of cliches. It's an epic fantasy, and she falls through a mirror, and there's like warring factions, of course, going on in this place that she ends up in, and of course she's the chosen one because how could she not be? And it's so incredibly terrible. Oh God, it's so terrible. But you know, it was a learning process, and I learned a lot writing it. So, and I finished it. So I guess that's all that matters.
So, what makes, in your opinion, what makes a character a perfect character?
That they're not perfect. Like the best characters I found in writing and reading and movie watching and whatnot are the ones that are deeply, deeply flawed, and that are not particularly just evil or good or what have you. That they're fully fleshed out. And as we talked about, George R. R. Martin does it really well because no character of his is just evil. They all have degrees of. Everybody has a redeemable quality, or the opposite of that, which makes, if it's somebody you can relate to even a little bit, you'll love them forever.
And is there a message in your newest novel that you want readers to grasp?
Not a message of sort. I mean, it's not particularly preachy or anything. Religion plays very highly into it. Not any religion as we would recognize it now. They all have their own very specific, but there's no black or white. Like there's, very people that do really, really terrible things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone involved with their situation is evil and going to, murder and kill and whatnot.
Right. And so there are viewers in here, and I want to say, viewers, if you want to ask Katee a question, go on Twitter and use the hashtag KatieLiveChat, and then I will ask your question to Katee here, and it'll be fun and interactive. So the next question I have is, what authors do you find to be mentors?
Mentors as in, like, I want to be them when I grow up?
Yeah, kinda, I guess.
There are a couple authors that are incredibly, or have been instrumental in my process, I guess, just because I read their books and I find them wonderful. Cressley Cole was one of the first ones I read that the women completely, I guess, own their sexuality and make no apologies about it. They're like, yeah, I'm flashing people or whatever, which I found completely fascinating because it's not necessarily, or at the time, it wasn't necessarily something I'd seen a lot of. Anne Bishop is probably my top author ever because I can reread her books twice a year and never, ever, ever get tired of them. And if I could ever accomplish that, where people wanted to reread my books on that level, I would, consider it that I've made it. I've made it, and, that's awesome. Yeah, oh, there's so many. But those are the two big ones that I reread a lot, extreme amounts of time.
Right. And so if you were to pick a genre that you want to write in next, what would that be? Kind of expand your horizon.
I actually, and this is funny because just last week I kind of decided upon this path. I want to write YA like thriller horror, which is as far from contemporary romance as you can kind of get. But I have an idea, and I'm gonna shake on it a little bit and see if I can find something the story that needs to be told. But yeah, YA horror.
That is quite a jump, but I'm excited to see what you come up with. And so, what is a genre that you will never dip your feet in?
I've learned the hard way that you never say never because 3 years ago I would have said that it's highly unlikely that I'll ever write contemporary, and now I write contemporary and I actually really enjoy it. Um, I think the genres that I write in kind of adapt as I go further along. Like the more I learn, I end up writing stuff that I never expected. I think historical would probably be one that I may never get to just because the sheer amount of research to make sure you do it correctly is daunting, but you never know.
So let's talk about your newest book coming out. Can you give us a little insight on your main character or characters? Like what do they do that makes them so special?
Okay, I can do that. My main heroine her name's Ophelia, and she's a diviner, which is kind of they're an alien species, but they're very human. But they use tarot cards to communicate with their goddess. So tarot cards, because of her, feature really, really heavily into both books. Just because if you don't follow what the reading says, then there are some really nasty consequences. As she learns the hard way, of course. And the hero, Boone, is one of my favorite heroes to date. He's so reluctant and doesn't necessarily want to be involved with the whole thing, but he has an honorable streak that is kind of dragging him into the whole mess of chaos that is the first book.
It's really interesting to have a sci-fi and a romance. So what made you come up with this idea like, romance, but sci-fi in it?
The third book I ever wrote was sci-fi romance, and it wasn't on purpose at all, like even a little bit. And it ended up being the same universe that I took and applied to this book, to Queen of Swords. It started off being as like a high adventure, like it was only supposed to be high adventure, but I've also found out the hard way that I cannot write anything that doesn't have romance in it, which is one of those things. Oh, I'll never write a romance. It's my happy place. I like the journey of falling into love, especially on a backdrop of such high stakes that you find in these books. And these two characters just kind of, there was no I didn't have a choice in the matter. They were going for it, and they were going to fall in love and shenanigans.
So you just said that there has to be romance in your books. Your new book, you said, is going to be a horror. So are you going to put romantic horror in it?
I suspect that there will be a romantic tones. I mean, I doubt it'll be a true romance in the way that works, but knowing myself, I don't see it. There'll probably be romantic undertones at least, just because I do nothing halfway. So why not throw some romance in your horror?
Right. So the next question I have is about teams. Are you team Edward or Jacob from Twilight?
That's a good question. I definitely not team Edward. He creeps me out. Oh man, what was the older brother's name? The one with Rosaline?
I have no idea. Oh, Jasper?
No, the other one. I'm the other one. The oldest brother. He's the cute one. But if I have to choose between the two, Jacob. I'm team Jacob.
Are you team Gale or Peeta from Hunger Games?
Gale, I'm team Gale. I mean, if not for Katniss, I'm team Katniss for Katniss. But if I had to choose my personal taste, Gale all the way.
And then the third is, are you team Simon or Jace from the Mortal Instruments series?
Jace, always Jace.
And so all those three were books that were turned into movies. So what's your favorite book turned movie?
Harry Potter, actually. Those books are so good, and the movies, I felt conveyed it as much as you can possibly across the different platforms. I think they honored those books incredibly well with those movies.
So you said that you've been writing for 8 years, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So from year one to now, how do you think you've evolved creatively?
Oh, it's like toddler to, adolescent because I still have a ways to go. Always learning. But I just have learned the craft a lot better that you don't necessarily realize when you sit down to put words to page. But there's a lot of technical stuff that you kind of learn along the way that you can only learn by actually putting words to page. I read somewhere that it's 1,000, 10,000 hours, 1,000,000 words, something like that. That in order to master the craft, I'm more than that in, and I still don't feel like I've mastered it. So, but I feel like I can do justice to a story now in ways that I wasn't able to do before, just because of learning the craft.
And which actor or actress would you like to see playing the lead character from your most recent book?
Ooh, oh my God, I am just spacing on his name. Friggin' Damon from the Vampire Diaries. He, what the hell is his name?
I don't watch The Vampire Diaries, I'm sorry.
Oh, uh, Ian Somerhalder.
Oh,
Or
yes, I know him. Yes.
yeah, it's him, but add like 50 pounds of muscle, and that is Boone. He's not skinny. He's very bulked up, but the face is Boone, my hero.
So you write about sexy men. What is your type of man?
He's getting home right now, actually. No,
You can't talk about it then.
I like. I have a thing for the not in real life, in fiction. The elegant like psychopaths, actually, like Hannibal Lecter, and the ones that are really charming, but you're not sure if they're gonna like throw down with you or if they're gonna murder you. Those I like reading about those particular gentlemen, which is probably says something really unattractive about me, but yeah, I like those guys.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And so next we're going to play a game called Would You Rather,
Okay.
except it's literature edition. So for those of you who don't know what Would You Rather is, I would say something to Katie like, would you rather eat apples or oranges for the rest of your life? And then you have to say apples or oranges. But this is literature edition. So we're going to start with would you rather live in the world of Hunger Games or Divergent?
Oh, geez. Probably Divergent because I'd have a better chance of actually surviving in that one. Hunger Games, I'd probably be in like District 12. Like, let's be honest. So, yeah, Divergent. I'd probably be with one of the factions.
Would you rather fight next to Hermione from Harry Potter, Katniss from Hunger Games, or Tris from Divergent?
Hermione, she's got all sorts of bags of tricks, and she doesn't necessarily throw down physically, but I would not want to be opposite of her ever.
Would you rather read a book that is written poorly but has an excellent story, or read one with weak content but is written well?
Read one that has an excellent story that's written poorly. The story, the content is what gets me through. So yeah.
Would you rather, or no, who would you rather have as a child, Harry Potter or Hermione Granger?
Oh geez. Probably Harry Potter. They both get into so much trouble. But yeah, Harry Potter.
Would you rather write novels where all the characters are women or all men for the rest of your writing career?
Oh gee. These are some good ones. I think all women. I mean, I like writing men a lot, but my ladies are where I tend to enjoy writing my heroines a little bit more sometimes.
Would you rather only write your books in trilogies or standalones?
Trilogies, because I have never met a side character that I did not want to give their own romance to, and so asking me to write standalones would be a slow form of torture because no, they need their happy ending too. So yeah.
Would you rather write a book without using conjunctions or have every sentence of your book begin with one?
One without conjunctions.
Would you rather write a plot twist you hated or write a character you hated?
A plot twist. Characters are king, and people will put up with a lot if you have good characters, but not so much the other way around.
Right. And would you rather, okay, sorry, I lost my place. Would you rather a super successful movie be made from one of your books or a long-lasting television series?
Ooh. Probably a long-lasting television series, just because I feel like they'd go off in a random direction, and I'd like to see my characters play in that world. So it'd be interesting to witness.
Would you, and then the last one, would you rather critics rip your book apart publicly or never talk about it at all?
I guess probably have them rip it apart publicly. I've learned that you can sell as many books from a bad review as from a really good one. And so, I'd like to think my skin's thick enough to take it. It's probably not, but that's why we have wine. So.
And that concludes our game. Yay! Good job. You passed.
Yay!
Yay! So my next question is, do you have any tips for aspiring writers?
The only one that really matters in the grand scheme of things I've found personally is to finish your book. Like, it's great to do all the other things and to worry about all the other things, but unless you're actually finishing a book and getting all the way to the end, you can't fix a blank page, so you need to get the first draft down, even though that's sometimes the most painful part of the process.
If you were stranded on a desert island, which character do you want by your side of your newest book?
Probably Ophelia. She's kind of a badass, and I feel like, with her cards and whatnot, hopefully she'd tell us when our savior people are going to show up.
And then, I lost my place again. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay, so where can you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, I am just kind of, at this point, I take it sort of 1 month at a time, even though I keep losing 6 months, like, randomly. It's June almost. But I'm just, one book at a time. I'm slowly, systematically. I try not to look too far ahead because then I realize how many books I have left to write, and I start to get panicked. So I'm not sure. Hopefully still doing this. Hopefully still paying my bills. Hopefully people are, still enjoying the books. As if I'm doing that, then I consider it a success.
No, I already asked that. If you could have been the original author of any book, what would it have been and why?
If I could have written, like I mentioned Anne Bishop earlier, if I could have written the Black Jewels trilogy, those books, every time I read them, I get a little I love reading them, but I get a little envious because it's one of those ideas I sort of wish I thought of first, which is typically an indication of a really good book. But yeah, those ones are just phenomenal, and every time I read them, I'm like, oh, I wish I came up with this.
And then, so there's a hot button issue right now, and that is the diversity, or the lack of diversity, in the young adult genre. Can you give us your thoughts on that?
I think that it's one of those issues that it needs to be resolved. I mean, it's you can pick maybe 1 out of 10 books, and that's probably really, really optimistic that with has diverse characters. I think there needs to be more of it. I mean, I get tired of reading about, the wayfish blonde or whatever girl who is an outcast. I feel like there needs to be diversity across the board. The books that I've enjoyed the most recently are actually the ones with the diverse cast and the diverse backgrounds, and we need more we need more. That's the short and the long of it. I hope the publishers start acquiring more so that we can start solving this issue as much as possible.
And then there is another hot button issue, actually on Goodreads this time, and that is kind of like the reviewer versus authors. And, you know, reviewers are saying authors don't comment on my review, and authors are saying, well, you're saying really unfair things, or you're being mean to me or something. So what are your thoughts about commenting on reviews of your book?
I avoid it like the plague. I feel that I've seen people say it, and I agree that once that book is out of my hands and being sold, it's frankly none of my business what people think of it. I mean, obviously I want people to like it, and I want them to enjoy it and to tell people about it and to, buy more books. But if somebody doesn't like it, I would rather have people really like it and really hate it than meh across the board. And as such, like, I don't feel it's my place to step in and be like, no, you're wrong. Like, you shouldn't have given me a 1-star review because other people were spoiling it. It's people will take the reviews, they'll read them as such. I mean, it's I don't necessarily think authors should be responding to either good or bad reviews. I think that it's a very slippery slope in which, as we've seen many, many times, it gets really ugly really fast. And I think it's best to just avoid, or at least my policy anyways, is to avoid some more. If I see a bad review, maybe I get a little sad and go eat a cookie or something, and then just, move on with my life, because it's their opinion and they're totally entitled to it.
So you read bad reviews of your book. Do you do it maybe to see if your fans want something different? Like, do you use it as a tool maybe?
Well, honestly, I mean, I'm these days, like, especially Goodreads, that is very much for the readers, I feel, so I try to stay off it for the most part. On Amazon, I will check periodically. I'm always curious because I know typically, like, people tend to have problems with my heroines, which is totally okay. I mean, I write very polarizing heroines. The one review that, like, got me the worst was one a couple books ago that's just like, Katee Robert gets worse with every book she writes, and I was like, I'm like, oh, I fail. But I mean, typically it's stuff that I can, note that, okay, well, they didn't like that about that character. Typically, that's an opinion type thing. It's, like I said, I'd rather have somebody that people love and hate than just, like, are okay with across the board.
And so, do you think that the cover of your books or any books plays an important part in the buying process?
I think so. I mean, it does for me as a reader. I definitely will pick up a book that has a cover that attracts me before, that's what gets me to, like, get it in my hand and to check it out. I think especially with the Brazens, they're very specifically branded so that people can recognize and be like, I know what I'm getting from this book, which is a good thing because, expectations are key. We actually recovered Queen of Swords. It was originally a different cover, which I loved very much, but people... I think, like I said, my Brazen readers will actually like these sci-fi books, and so we definitely picked a cover that was more similar to, in order to promote people to not hesitate to pick it up. Because I've done this with other authors that I really enjoy, and I feel guilty every time, that if they switch series and the cover is too different, I'll actually hesitate to pick it up. And it's a personal fault, but I think some people do share that, so if you can give them as few reasons to pass it by as possible, then I think the cover is a big part of that.
And if you could be best friends with one of your characters, who would it be?
It would be the heroine in my upcoming contemporary, Regan. She is a ballbuster. She's a headhunter, and she just says that thing that everybody thinks but never actually verbalizes. She has no hesitation to do that. And I think the amusement of having her around would be fantastic.
So you say that you're a romance author. So what draws you to romance?
Why personally I read for escapism, and I guess write for escapism too. So I very much like going in knowing that there's a happily ever after to be had. And I can put up with all sorts of bad things in the meantime, as long as they are happy at the end. And so that's part of the reason why I write romance, is because you are guaranteed that no matter how bad it gets, you're going to get good at the end, which
And
is
what is the easiest and the hardest part about writing?
putting words to page. It's that first draft is it's the most fantastic aspect, because you are discovering these characters right along, as you're putting more like writing. But it's also really difficult because you get stuck and you have parts that hold you up, and it feels sometimes like you're yanking your fingernails off. It's terrible, but it ends up being worth it in the end, because you have to go through the growing pains to get to the end and then go back and fix everything.
So how do you get through that writer's block?
I've found that writing every day, I mean, even if you're writing, a couple hundred words of just plugging away at it, is actually, because you're training your brain to keep producing, I guess. And so even like if I take a week off, it's really, really hard to get back into it. So it's just a matter of at least getting a little bit every day, and you'll find that in your downtime, when you go to sit at the keyboard, suddenly your brain's like, oh yeah, I got more of this story, and it flows a lot easier. You just have to suffer through the bad parts to get to that aspect.
And then the last question, and then we're going to talk about the giveaway, is for your own reading, do you prefer ebooks or traditional paperbacks?
It depends. I typically try out new authors with ebooks, just because it's super easy to one click, and I am terrible at I just one click all over the place. If I really like the book, I'll actually go buy it in paperback or hardcover, whatever it's out in, because I reread my books, and I'm like a hoarder. Like, I like to have them and like have them on my bookshelf and all pretty and stuff. So I'll try out new authors with ebook, but if it's a author I already know I like, I will just go buy them in the stores, and sometimes I'll buy them in both, just because I like to support as much as possible, because I know it's hard out there sometimes.
And that concludes our chat. Now I'm going to talk about the giveaway. Katie here is giving away Queen of Swords, Queen of Wands, and Seducing the Bridesmaid. There's going to be 2 winners. These are going to be ebooks, so that means it's international. And what you have to do is this live chat is going to become a YouTube video. And once it's a YouTube video, you need to comment. And extra points if you follow Katie on Twitter and you put your username in the comments so I can verify the entry. And that's it. It ends the 29th, so next week. So thank you so much, Katie. I had a blast talking to you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.